The Samsung Galaxy S11 Plus is now here, and it's actually called the S20 Ultra, and this is Samsung's highest-end device for 2020, or at least until the Note 20 Plus launches. And honestly, the S20 Ultra is an absolute beast of a phone. So the real question is, how does it actually compare to Apple's own iPhone 11 Pro Max? Now, just to clarify, the S20 Ultra isn't out just yet, so it comes out in about a month's time, so on March 13th. So we'll be doing another video once we do get an actual review unit of the S20 Ultra, which they haven't really started shipping out just yet. But until then, I've been to a launch event, I played with the Ultra for quite a bit, and I've also covered 40 interesting facts you probably didn't know about the S20 Ultra in this video right here. So, until our actual in-depth comparison of the two phones, the S20 Ultra and the iPhone 11 Pro Max, here's how they compare ahead of the S20's release, with all the info that I have so far. So, hopefully this will give you guys an idea of which one is the better one to purchase. Now, this video is quite long, it's split into 9 different sections, so design, display, camera performance, software, special features, battery, price, and finally conclusion. It's not quite as in-depth as the main comparison will be, but once again, hopefully this will give you a pretty good idea as to which one is better and which one to buy. So grab those snacks, those drinks, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so starting off with the design, I have to say, these are both gigantic phones. The iPhone 11 Pro Max is definitely not usable with one hand, it's just massive. But even that is simply dwarfed by the S20 Ultra. Like, when I was using the S20 Ultra, it honestly felt like a tank. It was noticeably bigger than the iPhone 11 Pro Max, it was thicker, it was taller, but especially thicker. So at 8.8 millimeters thick versus 8.1 millimeters of the iPhone. Not only that, but you also have this massive camera module on the back, which you'll always end up touching when you're holding the phone, because that module is just gigantic. And that module is also about twice the thickness of the entire camera module of the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So if you're the kind of person that uses their phone flat on a table, well, the S20 Ultra will just wobble like crazy. And the thing is, if you add a case to, level essentially that camera module up with the rest of the phone, in that case, it will be extremely, extremely thick. It will pretty much be a brick of a phone. But hey, if you really want that camera, then yeah, maybe it's worth that trade-off. So long story short, they're both very big phones, but the S20 Ultra is just in a different league. Now, in terms of which one looks better, from the back, I do prefer the iPhone. I do like the frosted matte glass that we have, which leaves no fingerprints at all, versus the very fingerprinty glass of the S20 Ultra. I had to clean this, by the way, before every single shot at the event. However, from the front, there is no comparison. The S20 Ultra has almost zero bezels versus that massive notch that we still have on the iPhone. So the Ultra, for me at least, looks so much more futuristic and so much more modern than the iPhone does. But the iPhone does actually feel more premium overall in the hand, as we do have a stainless steel frame on the iPhone versus, well, just metal, polished metal on the S20 Ultra. Oh, and in case you missed it, we're actually doing a giveaway of the Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus. So if you want to win a pair of Samsung's brand new headphones, just be a subscriber to the channel, follow on Instagram @ZonUpTech, and then leave a comment on this video with your Instagram handle, and then also mention which color of the Galaxy Buds do you guys want to win. And I'll be announcing the winner on Instagram via DM and story on March the 12th, so just about a month from now. So yeah, good luck to everyone. Moving on to the display, the S20 Ultra takes this one easily. Not only does it have a larger 6.9-inch display versus the 6.5-inch display that we have on the iPhone, but since we don't have a notch at all, just a very small cutout for the front-facing camera module, you do have pretty much the entirety of all that massive 6.9-inch display to use, whereas on the iPhone, the usable area is actually smaller than 6.5 inches because of that notch. The S20 Ultra also has a high resolution of 3200 by 1440 compared to 2688 by 1242 on the iPhone, which also translates to a pixel density of 511 versus 458. Not enough to make a visible difference, but the S20 Ultra's display does have more pixels. And speaking of pixels, on the iPhone you can only watch YouTube in up to 1080p resolution. This is because of a dispute between Apple and Google, long story in terms of codecs. Luckily, the S20 Ultra does not have this limitation, so you can watch videos in up to Quad HD. So yeah, if you're into watching videos on your phone, especially on YouTube, then the Ultra is a much better choice because of the high resolution display, the lack of a notch, and also, the larger display. They both have the same display technology as they're both using the latest generation of Samsung panels. However, the Ultra has a refresh rate of 120 Hz versus 60 Hz on the iPhone, and I could immediately tell the difference between the two when using them. So all the animations on the Ultra, everything you do will feel twice as fluid and twice as fast as on the iPhone. You'll even be able to see games in up to 120 frames per second versus 60 frames per second on the iPhone, which means that if you're a mobile gamer, then the S20 Ultra is the ultimate choice. Unfortunately, the display downscales to a Full HD Plus resolution on the Ultra when you're using it in 120 Hz, so that's a bit of a downgrade in terms of clarity. However, the Ultra actually samples the touch inputs at 240 Hz versus 120 Hz on the iPhone, meaning that all the touches, all the inputs on the Samsung phone will be twice as fast to recognize than on the iPhone. Moving on to the camera, this is a very tricky one to compare because you see on paper, if you just look at the numbers, then the S20 Ultra looks like it came out in 2030. It has a 108 megapixel sensor versus the 12 megapixel sensor on the iPhone. So this is pretty much like comparing the first iPhone from 2007 to the iPhone 11 Pro Max's camera, at least on paper. In real life, it's a bit tricky, so here's what you guys need to know. The S20 Ultra has a sensor that's almost twice as big as the one on the iPhone. The bigger the sensor, the more light it can actually capture. Now, unfortunately, since we have 108 megapixels of resolution, the pixels in that sensor are very, very small. 0.8 microns on the S20 Ultra versus 1.8 microns on the iPhone. The smaller the pixels, the less light they can actually capture. Think of this as a beehive, essentially. So on paper, the S20 Ultra should be 2.25 times worse in low light than the iPhone is. However, Samsung claims that they're combining 9 pixels into 1, so that you get a significantly better low light performance. Now, I don't know about that because the pixels are still physically 0.9 microns in size. So on a hardware level, the pixels are still very tiny. Now, from my hands-on time with the Galaxy S20 Ultra, I did try the night mode in 2 different cases. In the first case, this was the one that was very, very controlled. So it was in a pitch black environment where the phone was essentially on a tripod, and in that case, it was actually way better than a Pixel 4's night mode, which was standing right next to it. The second scenario was basically an outdoor shot, and that one was pretty good, but it wasn't anything mind-blowing or anything above what we already have on current smartphones today. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for our ultimate camera review coming up in, well, a few days, or a few weeks, or a few months, hopefully just a few days. We'll see. It really depends on when Samsung sends us the actual review units. Now, the main camera difference between the iPhone 11 Pro and the S20 Ultra is actually in terms of the amount of zoom. So the S20 Ultra has this massive 48 megapixel periscope camera that actually gives you about 5 times optical zoom and 100 times digital zoom when compared to a 12 megapixel zoom module on the iPhone, which gives you 2x optical zoom and then 10 times digital zoom. So yeah, the amount of zoom on the S20 Ultra is simply nuts. You can get ridiculously close to subjects, and if you're the kind of person that zooms in a lot on shots, well, then the S20 Ultra is the right choice. They both have an ultra-wide angle module, but the S20 Ultra has an f2.2 aperture versus f2.4 on the iPhone, so the module on the S20 Ultra can capture more light. They can both do 4K 60 video, but the S20 Ultra can also do 8K video at 24 frames per second. However, the bitrate from what I've seen so far is quite low, so it's about 10 megabytes per second, which is really low. Now, when it comes to the front-facing camera, both of them have an f2.2 aperture, but the S20 Ultra has a 40 megapixel sensor versus the 12 megapixel sensor on the iPhone. So this should make the S20 Ultra noticeably worse in low light, but Samsung, once again, they do claim that they're actually combining 4 pixels this time into 1 to give you a 10 megapixel image in the end. But again, definitely stay tuned for our ultimate camera comparison, which will also be a blind camera comparison to see how these two phones stack up. And we might also have some other phones, maybe the Pixel 4 and maybe something else as well. Let us know in the comments what phones do you want to see compared in that blind camera test video. You can check out our previous one here. Okay, now moving on to the performance, the S20 Ultra comes with either the Snapdragon 865 processor if you buy it from the US or Canada, or Samsung's very own Exynos 990 chip if you buy it from anywhere else. Long story short, both processors are good, however, they're both behind Apple's own A13 processor in terms of raw CPU performance. However, that doesn't really matter, unfortunately, because thanks to that 120Hz display, the S20 Ultra will actually feel miles more fluid and faster than the iPhone does. RAM-wise, we get 4GB of LPDDR4 memory on the iPhone versus 12GB of LPDDR5 memory on the S20 Ultra. Now, some of you might say that iPhones don't need 12GB of RAM because iOS is more optimized, and yep, that's 100% correct. They don't need 12GB of RAM. However, I still have RAM management issues with my iPhone 11 Pro Max, which I've had since launch. Apps don't really stay open in the background for more than a few hours, and YouTube has to reload entirely almost every single time. And this isn't just happening to me, it's happening to pretty much everyone that has an iPhone 11 and keeps an eye on their RAM management. Luckily, on my Note 10 Plus, which has 12GB of RAM, I've never had this issue at all. So I'm confident that the same will apply to the S20 Ultra, which also comes with 12GB of RAM. However, if you buy the highest end model of the S20 Ultra that comes with 512GB of storage, that one also comes with 16GB of RAM. And speaking of storage, the iPhone comes with 64GB of storage as the baseline, while the S20 Ultra comes with double that at 128. Okay, now when it comes to the software, iOS versus Android, like we could make an entire series of videos just about this. But okay, long story short, Android is more customizable. It gives you more options and you can do pretty much anything that you want with Android. iOS, on the other hand, is easier to use, it's more polished, and it also works like magic if you also have other Apple devices like a MacBook, an Apple Watch, AirPods, and so on. Now, Samsung started having their own ecosystem or building their ecosystem recently. However, it still doesn't compare with Apple's. So if you just want a seamless integration and you already have some other Apple devices, then obviously go with the iPhone. Okay, now let's move on to special features, the features that make each of these devices unique. So I'll start with the iPhone. And the biggest special feature is that Apple ecosystem and things such as continuity, where if you're, let's say, writing an email on the iPhone, you'll see this bubble pop up on your Mac, and you can continue writing that email right where you left off on your Mac, which is pretty amazing. And you know, things like this, they do make the iPhone feel quite special and quite magical, so to say. Obviously, you do need other Apple devices as well in order to take advantage of this. Then we also get day one software updates. We get zero bloatware compared to Samsung, where we have, you know, a duplicate of almost every Google app. We also have Face ID on the front-facing camera, or on the front. Then we have that True Tone display that automatically adjusts the color temperature of the display to match the lighting environment and just make it easier on your eyes, so that's pretty awesome. And then we also have a very impressive water resistance of 4 meters up to 30 minutes on the iPhone 11 Pro Max versus 1.5 meters, 30 minutes on the S20 Ultra. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the iPhone. The S20 Ultra has 5G, millimeter wave 5G actually, and you can get speeds close to 2 gigabits per second, which is just ridiculous on a phone. Like, that's insane. We have 50 megabits per second in the office, which is quite ridiculously low. Anyways, you also have an always-on display, which is just a huge plus for me. Being able to see the time and my notifications on the display all the time is just amazing. And then we also have a time-of-flight camera on the back, which is used for AR, 3D scanning objects, and improving portrait mode photography. It's essentially a very similar technology to that Face ID camera that Apple uses on the front. It's just that Samsung uses it on the back. We also get an in-display fingerprint reader, a USB Type-C port, which I know this is so weird mentioning a USB Type-C port as a special feature, but yeah, there you go. The iPhone still uses Lightning. Then the S20 Ultra also has DeX, which is something pretty awesome. So you can connect an external monitor, and then the S20 will actually boot into this desktop UI. It's similar to Windows in terms of looks, and then you can connect a Bluetooth keyboard and a Bluetooth mouse, and you can use this thing as a desktop PC. Obviously, it won't run any Windows apps or any cool apps, but some popular apps like Office have actually been ported to DeX. So if you don't have a PC at home, and you just need a larger display, then feel free to just, buy a monitor and then use your S20 with that monitor. And, there you go. You can have a PC that way when you get home by using your phone as a processing power. So it's pretty awesome. Then we also get a microSD card slot for up to 1.5 terabytes of internal storage. We also have up to 960 frames per second slow motion versus 240 on the iPhone. You get split screen multitasking support, which for me is huge, especially when I'm traveling. And yeah, this is something that we don't have on iPhones at all. And I could go on and on and on with on-screen widgets and many, many more features. So if you're the kind of person that wants a Swiss Army knife in your pocket, then definitely get the S20 Ultra. Okay, now moving on to the battery, the S20 Ultra has a massive 5,000 mAh battery, while the iPhone 11 Pro Max has a 4,000 mAh battery, which is actually 3969 mAh, so quite a bit lower. Anyways, on paper, this might seem like a massive difference. However, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, out of all the phones that I've used, from the beginning has been at least the smartphone that lasted me the most throughout a day. It managed to last me significantly longer than my Note 10 Plus, which comes with a larger 4300 mAh battery. My Note 10 Plus actually drops about 30% battery overnight when I'm not using it, which is quite crazy. My iPhone drops about 3%. And yeah, numbers, like I said, aren't really everything when it comes to the battery, but in some cases they actually are. And those cases are, well, the charging speed. The S20 Ultra supports a 45-watt fast charging versus 18 watts on the iPhone. And while they can both charge to 50% in just about 30 minutes, the S20 Ultra can actually charge up to 100% in just over an hour, even with that massive battery, versus around 2 hours plus on the iPhone. Not only that, but the S20 Ultra supports faster wireless charging of 15 watts versus 7.5 watts on the iPhone, and the S20 Ultra also supports reverse wireless charging, meaning that you can actually charge things such as the Galaxy Buds or even the AirPods from the back of the S20 Ultra, which is pretty amazing. Now, when it comes to the price, the iPhone 11 Pro Max costs $1,100, or £1,150 in the UK for the 64GB model. Yeah, awesome conversion rate, Apple. Thank you, really appreciate it. The S20 Ultra, on the other hand, cost $1,400 in the US, so quite a bit more than the iPhone, and £1,200 in the UK. Yeah, I believe this is actually the first time a Samsung phone costs more than an iPhone does. Okay, so as a conclusion, there's no denying that the S20 Ultra offers you so much more. However, it's also more expensive. At $1,400 or £1,200, this phone very likely costs more than your laptop does. And you can kind of say the same thing about the iPhone. So if you're looking for the most feature-packed smartphone on the planet right now, well, that would be the S20 Ultra. However, if you're looking for something simpler to use, which works like magic with all the other products made by the same fruit company, then definitely get the iPhone. Obviously, stay tuned for our full comparison in which I'll be talking about the camera, because that's something that, I actually need some more time to test, and the battery life, and also the performance, and everyday use. So those are three things that I need to spend quite some time with the S20 Ultra, a few weeks, to be able to give you the actual final results. I personally use both Android and iOS, but iOS is usually my main one, as I do own a Mac. But I always switch to the latest Samsung, Pixel, and OnePlus phones as soon as they come out. And I use them as my main daily driver, replacing the iPhone for a few weeks or sometimes even a few months, like it's been the case with the S10 and my Note 10. I absolutely love those phones. But yeah, in the end, I always end up switching back to the iPhone because of that integration with macOS. And the Apple Watch, which still is overall the best smartwatch that you can buy. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the S20 Ultra and the iPhone? Which one would you pick and why? And if you have enjoyed this very in-depth video and you want to see, well, more in-depth videos like this one, feel free to support the channel by becoming the member. So it only costs £0.99 a month, so less than a cup of coffee per month. And you support the channel, and you also get these really cool badges next to your name that actually evolve the longer you've been a member for. So that's pretty cool. And then also, obviously, subscribe notifications so that you get notified whenever a brand new video comes out. But yeah, this has been pretty much it for this one. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. That's not usually what I say. So I'm Daniel, Zen of Tech, signing out. Cheers.